And here we go. Welcome to TechVets, the podcast, the show dedicated to exploring the world of tech and cybersecurity through the eyes of industry leaders and ex-forces personnel. In this special Armed Forces Day show, when the UK comes together to show its appreciation of the services, we're talking to a team of volunteers who support TechVets and their members as they transition from military to civilian life and into tech and cybersecurity jobs. We've got a big cast today. We've got James from TechVets and volunteers, Dan and Ollie and Ben, and I think Nicky's going to join us. So hello, everybody.
Hi there, Charlie.
Hi, Charlie. How are you doing?
Hello. Brilliant. Can I ask everybody to introduce themselves, just so the listeners know who you are? So, James, you're an obvious one. You're the boss. Who are you, and what do you do for TechVets?
So I'm the director of TechVets. I lead the show single-handedly as the only full-time member, which is why it's so important that we have so many volunteers bringing their expertise along to help me out. But I was a 19-year member of the British Army. I left in 2018 and started my role in cybersecurity in GDS within the Cabinet Office.
Thanks, Dan. You were, according to my notes, an operations sergeant in the Royal Signals, now a cyber assurance manager at 6.6. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Hi, Charlie. Yeah, so I'm the Scotland chapter lead for TechVets. It's not a role that I earned. I sort of just fell into it, being the only member that was in Scotland for a while. I was Royal Signals for 12 years and then made the transition out into civilian street to be working information security, cyber security. I got involved with TechVets around about 2018, sort of January 2018, when it was a very, very small community. And in that time, I've been involved with it as it grew, and a lot more members joined and a lot more resources became available for members. And then when they started to assign chapter leaders, I'd already organised an event, so just sort of stepped into that role. And I'm still here now trying to help the best I can.
Is it a mentoring role? Is that the main thing that you do?
I wouldn't say I was a mentor at all. No, I think it's more guidance. It's because I've already done that path. I can answer the questions that people might have rather than them looking all over the place. There's one single sort of point of call that they can go to, and that's sort of TechVets. So anyone who's resettling in Scotland, I've got a good idea of sort of the roles that are available, because each different location in the UK will have different sort of jobs that's realistic that you can sort of attain in that area. So I can answer questions like that, and I can answer simple questions of like what qualifications that I see being advertised a lot for, what qualifications I see have got value in Scotland, stuff like that. So it's not mentoring, no, because you're not that close, really. It's more a guidance sort of role.
And 6.6, they're London-based, aren't they? But you're running the Scottish operation for them, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So I'm just outside Glasgow, and I originally worked for a company called CGI that Ben works for. And during the pandemic, every company's evolved, and 6.6 have started recruiting and hiring people from outside of the London area. And I had a friend that worked there, a veteran, who spoke very highly of them, and I had a few conversations with them, and they're a massive armed forces supporters, and they offered me a role, so I made that move. Yeah.
Brilliant. Let's turn to Ben, former squadron leader OC of an RAF engineer squadron, now a senior CTI analyst at CGI. Is that right? Have I got my notes right?
Yeah, that's right. I'm currently a cyber threat intel analyst with CGI, so one of the bigger business services and IT project companies within the UK. Do a lot of work with government, MOD, public sector, private sector, energy and critical national infrastructure. So quite a diverse spectrum of activities across all IT, and I work within the cybersecurity business unit. So I started with CGI just as a pandemic started, and done a couple of roles within there, doing cyber threat intelligence at the moment. But before that, I was doing security architecture work with a different team working on security controls and infrastructure design for MOD projects.
And as far as what you do for TechVets is concerned, is it more or less as Dan described it? Are you a guide, so to speak?
Yes, pretty much. Yeah. So I currently do CV reviewing work on a lot of RAF guys leaving, guys interested and ladies interested in cyber threat intelligence and consultancy work. So we look at the CVs, develop it with a mind to what they want to do outside if they haven't left already, but also with a view to shaping a generic CV towards a targeted sector of the cybersecurity industry. And that's, having a dialogue with them about what they want to do, why they want to do it, that sort of behavior, and then guiding them through the process and helping them write and develop as it goes along. CV is very much an iterative process, as we all found when we were shaping ours to leave the Air Force or the Army or whichever service, and it's just giving them a little bit of experience from somebody who's already trodden that path numerous times, relatively recently, to help with that.
Thanks, Ollie, former Corporal in the Royal Marines. You are the one who's gone out and founded your own business, North Star Cybersecurity. Did you, when you left the services, did you go into a role? Did you go into a job doing something else first, or did you just dive straight in and start a company?
Sure, absolutely. So I did dive in and start a company with a friend actually, but it wasn't in cybersecurity. So it was in surveillance, so physical surveillance, open source intelligence, working predominantly around London, across other parts of the UK, doing, as I said, sort of physical surveillance or open source intelligence, finding out, tracking people online. Whilst doing that, which was really interesting, got to do lots of fun and interesting bits at nice posh hotels and some not nice fun bits sitting in the back of a van for hours on end. We kept getting requests for lots more technical aspects of surveillance. So Wi-Fi exploitation, legally, I might add just on that one. Yes, so a lot more technical different aspects that we kept getting asked for. And that's where my sort of, requirement and need drove me down more technical aspects. And then I joined, I've done a few courses, sort of CompTIA basic courses, because I was non-technical, always been kind of computer literate, but not from a technical background within the military. And I joined a cyber consultancy as a penetration tester after doing a course, and went up through the different various levels, and then figured out I'd give it a go doing it myself. And now here we are as the MD at North Star Cybersecurity, and it's going very well.
Have you got to the stage where you're employing people and perhaps employing them via the TechVets program?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've recently grown quite quickly throughout the pandemic, which has been very fortunate. So we're now up to 10 employees. We started 2.5 years ago. And out of that, 6 of those are ex-military personnel as well. So which has been really good. And one of the guys, Michael Jepson and Henry Itchy, have just come through that same TechVets route that we're talking about today. So it's been really great.
Grant, Nicky Moxon, you've joined us while we were talking, making an entrance. She's not joined us.
No, so she's having technical issues. She's not been able to jump on yet.
Okay, super. We'll catch up with her in a minute. Well, look, Ollie, can I just come back to you, partly for continuity reasons? This reason for working, this reason for helping TechVets, is it purely altruistic as far as you're concerned? Do you get the kind of the cream of the crop of services personnel looking for jobs?
So initially it was because I'm going to give credit where it's due, was a guy called sort of Phil Kimpton, who was, I'd say, one of the first known people, again, one of the kind of founding guys that kind of not started TechVets, but was there in the beginning at the early stages. I got in touch with him about getting into career into pen testing. He gave me tons of advice, was really helpful. And for me, as soon as I joined as a pen tester, even if I was 1 month ahead of someone, 2 months or 6 months or a year, I just wanted to do that same thing back. I like knowledge dissemination. I like helping people out, I guess. And training and advising people is something that I've done a lot in the past. So it kind of came naturally to me. But now we're obviously reaping the benefits of TechVets as an employer, which is excellent. So yeah, it's kind of a win-win in all situations for me.
So James, you've heard their pitches. Are they giving the right answers? Are they in this for the right reasons and doing the right thing as far as you're concerned?
Yeah, absolutely. As volunteers, I prepped them, primed them with the right answers just to make us look good. Yeah, I think that the one thing that we see in the military community is that generally people want to give back and they want to support not just veterans and military people anyway. It's just a natural, ingrained sort of character trait that people want to give back to the people around them, to society. But the military bond is pretty strong. And I think one thing that we see with the volunteers is that, yes, it's great that they can bring their expertise and their knowledge and their industry, their new sort of industry-wise perceptions on things. But actually, it's that real strength in community where you've got people that are desperate to help out with others. And I think the one thing that we've managed to nail on the head is by getting people involved in a meaningful way that adds value, that doesn't send people down the wrong path. It enhances the sort of pathways that they're already on, helps them make the right decisions, which has been really useful. And again, as Ollie said, look, that's a prime example of where it works perfectly. Someone who has received some support, who sets up their own company that then employs TechVets members. And clearly, yes, it's good to give back, but the skills are quite evident. TechVets wasn't set up because veterans are vulnerable and we need to help them. It was set up because there was a huge talent pool that was being underused, certainly wasn't being capitalized on by the tech sector or the cybersecurity industry. And there is a credible way in which we can map those military skills to those roles and help business access that talent pool. And it's working.
It's working. Dan, was it easy for you to move into tech from the armed forces?
I wouldn't say it was easy, but it was probably easier than most. I came from a very technical background. I already had 12 years experience in networks and IT. So for me to make that transition into cybersecurity, the gap that I had to bridge wasn't as large as somebody like Ollie with no technical background while he was serving. So no, it's never easy to make the transition, but if you can plan the transition correctly, whether you're technical or not, and if you do that with enough foresight and with enough guidance and help like someone like TechVets can give you, then it can be easier than just click in on a Monday morning because you're not happy and then trying to figure it out thereafter. If you plan first, use the resources and all the people around you that are willing to help, and like James said, veterans are crazy. All they want to do is help other veterans. You never go to another veteran and ask for something and they say no. And whether they're in TechVets or not, I've had a armed forces community in CGI, and there's an armed forces community in 6.6. And if you go to another veteran and ask them for help, you'll get it 100% of the time. And I've never ever seen a veteran that doesn't want to help.
Yeah, you make a good point though, Dan, as well. Sorry, about the planning aspect. And I think the problem that we see are too many service leavers leaving. They sign off, and then they start planning, and rather than plan first before they sign off. And the problem there is it's too short a time. It works well for a traditional employment model. If you want to get into something more manual, then you can do some courses, you can learn some skills. Bob's your uncle. But if you want to get into cybersecurity or technology and you want to be quite technical, it takes time to learn those skills. And you had some of those prerequisites, but others don't. And certainly, they struggle then because they've got to try and cram it in such a short space of time. I suppose the benefit of the TechVets network is that you can come in early on in your plan and start to get that advice, start to get those ideas around what next, what route you want to take, what skills are needed. I suppose that's one of the benefits that really leads with the community.
So Ben, go back. Sorry, please. Just go on. No, that's right. You go.
I was just about to say with TechVets, as James alluded to follow on from that, and in my experience, it's not just having access to the individuals as well. It's access to immersive labs and cybery and all that sort of thing as well. I had a 2-year plan to leave. I had an option point coming up just at the point at which I discovered TechVets in around March 18. I went to an event at Canary Wharf and thought, well, this is quite interesting. Started to get interested in that, started doing some research, started doing some training, and started to get into it that way. And then the Discord community started coming to life as well. So whilst I was on my last tour, I was living away in the mess during the week. So I had the time of an evening to do my studying, to do my technical research and understand, well, what sort of cybersecurity or tech role do I want? Well, actually, I'm interested in threat intelligence because I've got an intelligence background. So therefore, I want to do this sort of thing. This is where I'm going to focus my attention and dedicate the time that I've now got to it. Because in 18 months' time, I'm going to have left the RAF and I'll need a job. So it's exactly that, as James said, plan early. Don't leave it until you're planning your resettlement leave or you're 6 months out. If you know you're leaving, plan ahead, because that time goes really quickly. But it's a great opportunity to get involved in that community and get all the information. And as Dan said, there are veterans out there who will bend over backwards to help you out in any way they possibly can, even if it's just meet me for a coffee, let's talk about what you want to do, and I'll connect you up with some other people who can help. It's a fantastic opportunity.
Yeah, basically, Ben, what you're saying is, and I recall having a coffee with you in GDS that time. So basically what you're saying is that I forged that successful pathway for you just by having a coffee.
This is where he's trying to claim back his referral fees and stuff like that. Now his favours he's calling in soon, I think.
Fair point. Yeah, what crypto coins are you holding?
With that point Ben makes about planning early, one thing I always tell people if they haven't signed off yet is the 12 months notice is just the minimum amount of time you have to give. I always say give 2.5 years notice, because then you can hit 2, 3 or 4 financial years. So how I done over 2 years notice, which meant I could use 3 ELCs and 4 SLCs. So potentially 7 qualifications in that resettlement period that I could achieve. So built that roadmap out like what Ben's saying, looked at where I wanted to finish, where I am now, done a gap analysis essentially, looked at qualifications that I could use and that would be useful to get me the foot in the door in the cyber world. And then I signed off, and I think it was in January, and then 2.5 years later, out in April.
Ollie, did you land a bit more kind of feet first into your roles, or did you do this kind of carefully planned Dan and Ben version of thinking about it 2 years in advance?
Yeah, so I wasn't quite as I wouldn't say not so lucky, but obviously what the guys where TechVets is now is that everyone's got it's got such a wide audience that lots of people are hearing about it before they're putting their notice in. I didn't hear about cyber until I was well down the line of putting my notice in, didn't know nothing about it. Whereas lots of the guys are in the military, it's got a really good reputation, the word's getting around, there are great careers in there, and you don't necessarily have to have done 20 years as a techie to get a job. People are hearing that and they're listening to it. So it's a really good place to do that now. For me, no, I was, as I said, I was pursuing my surveillance and investigation type work. And as I said, I kind of decided with about 4 months left to pursue the technical career. So I had to very quickly upskill and spend many hours watching dull, dry videos. I won't name which ones that were dull, dry ones, but there's obviously lots of good free resources out there as well. Again, Immersive Labs wasn't there. This was lots of PowerPoint presentations, online studying, multiple choice type questions as well. So yeah, it was really hard. It was really difficult. And it wasn't the studying that was the most difficult part, because I think most military people can, you give them a course, they can go away and study it and pass an exam. The difficult point was when I joined a company, having no relevant experience as a penetration tester, spending massively out my depth. I'm just quite fortunate that I'm quite a good blagger and managed to blag my way through the first few months until I managed to learn what I was actually doing. And, if I look back now over the skills knowledge of what I've acquired over the last sort of 4 years, it's tremendous. And that's, partly down to lots more resources being available online as well, and learning through others, more senior. So, yeah.
I'd say it sounds like Dan and Ben did a lot of work and you kind of got lucky
That's what my sister actually always says that to me. She says, "Get lucky," but I say there's no such thing in life as getting lucky. You got to be right place, right time, and that's down to hard work. So,
well, I suppose the question is, if you're going to do it again, I mean, what would you do differently? How would you plan your move from the services?
Sure, absolutely. So I guess it would be, the whole networking thing and LinkedIn, etc. Doing that a lot early on. I'm quite a confident person, and when I discovered LinkedIn, I just find, as Dan said, everyone who's ex-military and even some civilians as well are really respectful of ex-military and will want to help you out. I messaged someone quite senior in Barclays, who you probably should really go through a few layers of escalation before directly messaging that person. But he was really helpful and directed me in the right places to go. But I would say, if I go back and do it again, certainly, as Dan advised, if you can plan out your LCAS, your ELCs to use, if you can. I guess the hardest thing about leaving the military at the moment and going into the world of tech is, where do you start? What do you do as a career? Where me being in Royal Marine for 12 years, so 10 years, where does that leave me into being a pen tester or an analyst or threat intelligence? And how do I know which of those you're going to like? So it's about that. You're not going to gain that until you've got a bit of experience, done a few courses. So again, the earlier on that you can do that, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah, I think I'd like more people to be, personally, I'd like more people to be aiming at becoming a technologist, and then following that on into cybersecurity, because that way you're going to have those technical skills that are never going to leave you. You can keep developing them. They'll need development, clearly, but I think it moves at such a frightening pace that what is pen testing, 6 months ago, is already changing slightly. The world of consultancy, it has now really overridden what was previously the cybersecurity services. It's now far more dominant, a sort of role, and everyone is pretty much client facing almost entirely. And I think we're now also looking at a lot more automation as well. So I think if you aim to do a specific thing, I think it can be difficult when you're first starting out. That's something that once you've got those foundational skills, that you can then move to and pivot to a little bit easier. And I think I wish that I'd just coded. I think from the age of 3 weeks old, coding, you can't start early enough. And as much as it's not necessary for most jobs in cyber, and even a lot of jobs in tech, it's just really useful. And it would have made my life incredibly easy.
But there are some innate talents, aren't there, which service leavers have, which veterans have. And although I appreciate how particularly Ben and Dan have taken their path out of the services very seriously, the fact is there is a kind of talent for management which comes with being a veteran, and there are those kind of things. I mean, that must be really important as part of the TechVets offer.
It is, and that's how I was successful. I didn't come out with technical skills. I came out with 19 years of experience in the military, doing all sorts of stuff. My last job was managing global intelligence requirements for land forces, and that's a fairly hefty responsibility. And there's not many people that were in my peer group that would have been doing the same sort of stuff outside the military. So I think the ability to take on responsibility, to have have the confidence to make decisions, to be able to use process, develop process, manage process, and most importantly, to manage people. And to do the people side of stuff. I think that's something that's, I've worked with some amazing, in GDS, the team was fantastically technical, but quite often they would look to me to do the human stuff, the interaction with people. They'd rather break things and fix things and use their incredible skills. And I think what the military do, especially as we're evolving off the back end of the pandemic, and where everything is far more consultancy based, then there is a real opportunity for veterans to use those interpersonal skills, the confidence, the ability to plan, prep, and deliver a consulting service with a client, and also the ability to travel and to react and adapt quickly, deal with change. That's also important.
I want to move this on in a sec, but has anybody got anything they want to add to that point right now?
I guess just to alleviate on, just to carry on from what James said about it being a fast-moving industry, absolutely, lots of people are looking to say we want to get into penetration testing, and I'm a pen tester. We're a heavy focused penetration testing company, but even in the last 2.5 years, we're seeing a big demand for managed security services. And again, we've now opened up a branch of MSSP for us in-house. And I'm not just selling North Star here in services, by the way, although we've got to throw them in and mention them. But, you know, again, it's just to kind of state that the change we're seeing it from a consultancy, you know, perspective as well, even in just 2.5 years. So you've got to think of the future. You've got to look at what products and automated tools could be done out there. And you've got to realize, you know, where are you best placed and what are your best qualities to get the most out of a job role.
Thanks, Ollie, and of course other cybersecurity firms are available.
Charlie, before you go on, I've just spoke to Nicky, and she's still having massive issues. She said she'll join when she can, but we may not have her at all.
It'll be like, you know, Broadway. She'll make a fantastic kind of entrance down the staircase, so it'll be great. Okay, what I want to go on to next really is the support for UK service veterans and what there is at the moment and whether there's enough of it. So a little bit more forward looking. So could I go back to Dan first of all? What's your feeling about what could be done to smooth the path for veterans into the tech industry?
To smooth the path into the tech industry. I mean, I think that's what TechVets is doing. I think when I was making my super plan for resettlement, there was so much out there, and I didn't know what to believe when I was reading all these different recommendations on qualifications. I mean, I've got qualifications that are absolutely useless because at the time somebody told me it was worth something. I'm not going to say what that is, but it was a week, and all I really got out of it was a free lunch. I've never used it. It was absolutely pointless. So I think the main thing that veterans moving into tech and cyber need is to be able to go to one place and get the truth. And I think that's what TechVets does. And I think the bigger it grows and the more resources that become available and the more partners that get involved, the more benefit that will be. And there are other groups out there that veterans can go to, but I just think having one sole place for the truth is what makes things a lot less confusing for people, because when you get told different stuff and you're just not sure, it just adds to the stress and the worry of when you're trying to resettle.
Yeah, that's a really important point. And you know, the one aim that I had in mind when I merged TechVets to become a program with RFEA, the Forces Employment Charity, is exactly that. They were already providing incredible employment support, both with the 14,000 service leavers that they support every year, but also the 6,000 plus veterans. And I think one thing that I've noticed over my tenure at TechVets is there's too much stuff. There's too much stuff that duplicates stuff. There's so much noise out there that as a service leaver, you don't know where to go. You don't know what's valuable and what's not. And it's an issue. It's worse having too much stuff than it is not enough at times. And having that single point of truth is really, really important. I think, you know, if you're not going into tech and cyber, then RFEA is a great place to get you signposted in the right direction for other career paths in other industries and other sectors, you know, or provide you that support and advice and guidance. You know, let's say, for example, you do have issues with mental health or something, or you're wounded in action back in the day, and you still having issues. Again, that all that support is in one place. And I think that's one thing that the organization really tries to achieve. It's really difficult though. There's just so much out there. It's just a wall of data and noise.
But Ben, can I just bring you into this bit, particularly about these stereotypes about PTSD and issues which people believe are attached to the veterans. Did you come across anything like that as you transitioned out of the services?
I don't think I did. My transition out of the services was planned and fairly well executed, I think, like Dan. But I didn't experience any issues or stereotypes or prejudices against me. I guess I've seen it with guys that I have worked for who have worked for me in my time in part of their transition. Perhaps, you know, there's a bit of a a bit of a stigma or a label attached to ex-servicemen as being bad, mad, or sad. It's a terrible cliche, but I think in some sectors that still exists. I think organisations like RAFEA, other military charities, and TechVets can assist in making sure that those sorts of prejudices and biases don't get to continue to manifest.
Is it a? I mean, well, let's ask Ollie. Actually, is this something you've come across?
I would say not so much. I think that when you look into large enterprise clients all the way through to small SMEs as well, and typically we always have a saying in Marines, you can find a bootneck anywhere, and it's not just a bootneck, but you can find an ex-military person in any organisation. I think because of the ethos and how the ex-military person typically tends to work in an organisation, they're quite well recepted. So. Actually, when everywhere that I've been anyway, I've kind of got in through that ex-military connection or group, and then you kind of liaise with them, and they're seen as quite well regarded, because from their work ethics. So yeah, I don't think there's, again, it just depends to personal experiences. I've not experienced any sort of stigma, with PTSD or anything like that, and I'm quite open with conversations with people about things as well. I think there's a lot more that's being done publicly at the moment with great charities out there that are doing a lot of work in this space.
I think we had Johnny Mercer on a previous podcast, and I think he hit the nail on the head. When he said that yes, that there may still be an issue in places, but largely that we don't see it anymore. Businesses are not stupid. They're not ignorant. They understand that yes, some people may have problems, but I think it's absolutely a fringe case more than it is the norm, that people are being, I suppose, really sort of negatively affected by a bad perception of military. I think there are still people, clearly leaving that need that support, but that support is available. Signposting perhaps needs to be improved. But I think generally now people are starting to see, especially with cyber and tech, here's the skills that we're getting, especially in the operational roles, because people are coming out of a military system where everything is operational, unless you're head of service or chief of defence staff. As much as we like to spout on about strategic in the military, it's all operational. It's all ingrained with multidisciplinary teams, deliverables, resource allocation, and I think, to be honest, we've got over that hill for the best part.
I think the more veterans that get into the industry, they just paint us in a better light. Like Ollie's saying, there's already ex-forces communities in the majority of large organisations now, and even some small and medium. And the good work that the veterans are already doing encourages hiring managers to just bring more of them in, because they've seen how well they can hit the floor running and adapt to situations really quickly, form great friendships, teams really quick.
Absolutely. I mean, 6.6 have now nabbed sort of four members of TechVets. I think there's a fifth potential one as well. We're looking at things like Tribeca, who recently did a fireside chat with us. They had a chat with a couple of guys. One piped up and said, I've got infrastructure background. Within 2 weeks, that guy had a job. They had absolute faith, absolute confidence that that was the talent pool they wanted to tap into, because they wanted the experience and the skills that generally come with a service person.
But it seems that everybody agrees, James, that TechVets is the right organisation to do this job, that you're doing a good job. What extra resource would you like to see so you can do a better job?
So a combination of recruitment fees from Ollie for the people that he's taken, and the referral fee from Ben as well. That can fund us for a bit longer. So I think the next step for us, and I am starting to engage more widely now outside of cybersecurity into some more infrastructure and DevOps type areas. I think getting more people involved in DevOps, in programming, software development is definitely the way forward to make sure that we are providing that opportunity for people. But to be perfectly honest, the more companies that can come and work with us to get people into jobs, the better it is, because regardless of what training we provide them, the golden nugget is always going to be that sustainable career pathway. And most importantly, we're just looking for great companies with really good cultures, because I've known so many members who have been out for a while, who have changed jobs, not because of the salary, but because all of a sudden the culture that they love is there in front of them and they can access it. And I was speaking to someone the other day who had taken a £2,000 pay drop, and specifically to go into a company because that company was literally everything they wanted in the location they wanted as well. So physically, the commute was shorter as well. And I think it's all about making it right. And tech companies in general have a really sort of cool feel to them. I think there's lots we can do with a lot more companies to give them access to our talent pool.
Yeah, just a quick one, James. Is this kind of lifestyle choice something you're seeing as much as a sort of sense of strength of career path choice? So
I think it's both. It's both. People definitely see the money side of it. That you're not going to be without a job, not for a prolonged period of time. Once you have technical skills or you're a cybersecurity specialist, because there's going to be a demand for those skills for a very long time. However, at the same time, you're looking at people leaving the military where they've been part of something bigger, whether that is, part of the unit they're in, part of an operational deployment to help change the lives of people, part of humanitarian assistance, disaster relief, really saving lives of people that have been impacted by terrible situations. And how do you replace that mission? I think it's really, really difficult. I think the benefit of cybersecurity is you're kind of doing the same thing. You're protecting people and assets, or you're looking for ways in which those are going to be harmed and then therefore help building security. Or if you're in tech, some tech is pretty much changing the face of society for the better. And I think generally speaking, technology is used for good, and it is used to enhance business, therefore enhancing lives, enhancing the way people live their lives, how they live at home, etc. And again, all the way down to the point where technology is helping people with disabilities. It's helping people who are wounded and injured for life, whether that's military or otherwise. So I think there's a real opportunity for people to leave the military and really go into something with real purpose.
I think that's pretty much summed up exactly why I made the jump into what I do now. I got back from Afghanistan in 2010, and my unit went into a high readiness role, and I was on that high readiness, so either 1 or 5 days notice to move until 2018, and I hadn't been anywhere. I didn't do anything. We were just on standby, and I had a conversation with my CO at the time, and he said that the unit we're in was essentially like a car insurance policy. You wanted it to be really, really good, but you hope you never have to use it. And that just struck a chord with me, and I thought, wow, I'm training day in, day out, going on the same exercises, doing the same thing, hoping that I never have to actually do it again. And that wasn't why I joined. I joined in 2008 at the height of Afghanistan, and that was exactly why I joined, to be a soldier, to do my job. So making the transition into cyber, you go to work every day and you do the job. You're literally reviewing your security controls, dealing with potential breaches, looking at incidents. It's essentially like being on the front line again, and it really is like that.
Yeah, because it's not, yes, fine, like 99% of the time it's not lives, but the impact of if someone has, their business goes bust because of ransomware, or individuals lose all of their savings, their identity, etc. That can cause people to take their own life, and it has done, but it does ruin lives literally by the thousands on a daily basis. So it's such an important role to play.
You just have to look in the media at how many different critical infrastructures have been hit by ransomware. You've got Colonial Pipeline, you've got the Irish health system. Those things are real life, and they're happening daily. And if you work in cyber, you can work against that. So
you're kind of saying you got into this because it was similar to your military role, is that right?
Mine specifically wasn't far off. Yeah, I was in a technical role. Yeah.
And then towards the end of your career, while you were still, you could have moved at 5 days' notice, you started that transition into your new job, your new life.
Yeah, so I actually took a role with the reserves for my last posting so that I could move back up to Scotland and transition while up in Scotland, just to make things like interviews and stuff easier. So my final role was an operations sergeant for 32 Signal Regiment, so based in Glasgow, which is really good, and they do some really good work as well, aligned to UK ops. So I was still doing some good stuff, but it wasn't deploying to Afghanistan. It wasn't what I joined the army for.
So for a service leaver who's nervous about signing off and starting over again in a new career, what's your top advice?
So my top advice would be, as we've said before, the 5 Ps. What was it? Prior planning prevents poor performance. Build a roadmap. Look at where you want to be in 10 years' time, not in 12 months, not in 2 years. Where do you want to be in 10 years' time? Pick, like James said, be a general technologist, specialize later on down the road. Use your ELCs properly, use your SLCs properly, use the networks around you, build your LinkedIn nice and early, like Ollie said. Get on there, get that updated, look professional, network with all the different armed forces communities that are out there, and pick a job that's actually available in the location you want to resettle. Don't try and be a pen tester on the Isle of Man, because it's probably not going to happen. Look at the jobs that are available where you want to be. And again, that advice was given to me before a pandemic. I suppose with the remote working now, there's going to be a lot more flexibility. So you may well be a pen tester on Isle of Man, but there's no point trying to achieve a role if it's not available where you want to live. And make sure you understand how much money you need to make when you get out. You may need £100,000, you may need £20,000. Be realistic, and just make sure that I don't know, I've sort of lost my train of thought. Just cut that out before the money bit.
Yeah, that's fine. Ollie, that sounded like a very kind of planned move. Would you add the words buskets to that as well, or do you agree with that?
No, so I absolutely agree from a planned approach. I mean, one of the key points that I would say is expand your horizons. So for myself, if I could go back 7-8 years ago and you said, okay, to me, then you're going to be sitting, doing what's effectively a desk job. I'm a very outdoor active, person. I put all my time and energy and effort into, the job in the military, which again, most of it from a physical perspective. And I would never have thought that I'd have gone down this route, but actually I can take all of that same passion, drive, determination, focus it on a mental aspect. The pen testing is in crazy, not just pen testing, but I broaden my horizons within cyber now, and I'm doing loads more detailed stuff in intrusion analyst and techniques, malware, and looking at EDR and ransomware as well. And you're challenging your mind rather than your body, and it equally is rewarding. It really is. So that's what I'd say to the service leaders out there who can't see themselves doing that type of, sit around a computer. It's not just you're sitting there at a computer and looking at numbers or whatever else. It is really interesting work. And you can find the same amount of passion for it as what you could probably find when you're in the military.
And Ben, service leaver advice from you, please. What do you recommend?
Be curious, broaden your horizons, and see what's out there. There is a shocking amount of interesting roles outside of the military, and there will be something that takes your fancy. I wouldn't have thought 5 or 6 years ago that I would have gone into cybersecurity. I would have thought with an aerospace engineering background, I would have gone into something in the military or defense aerospace technology sector. So whilst it's still technical and technological based, this is very different to where I ended up. So yeah, there are a lot of different opportunities out there. Sometimes they just present themselves, so don't be afraid to take opportunities and exploit them as much as you possibly can. The service leavers have got those opportunities with their standard learning credits, enhanced learning credits. Make use of those as early as you can, as Dan has previously said, and use them to best effect to get what you want out of your resettlement, and then transition into the civilian sector.
And I think one thing that we've also forgot to mention is develop your soft skills. because they are foundational when you get out and you are dealing with clients in consultancy and stuff like that. So definitely work on soft skills, read books. There's so many good books out there for developing that sort of stuff. So I would definitely take that on board as well.
Lovely. James, do you want to wrap this all up? What have you learnt from your volunteer team today that you think is important for a service leaver today?
I think you don't need any pre-defined background to get into cyber or tech. Anyone can do it. I think you don't have to have the most comprehensive plan in the world, but there are some key points that you need to factor into your journey into cyber or tech as you leave the military. One is that you need to make sure that you have at least a rough plan of an end goal and what your start point is. Network like hell, and I would certainly say that making sure that you're comfortable to engage with people, as the guys have dragged out, working with clients and consulting in a consulting arm of a business means that you're going to be doing a lot of that. But even when you're doing your assessment, you need to be prepared to engage with people. Make sure that you are comfortable with being a learner again, and that's something that's really difficult. Coming from being a practitioner or an expert in the military, going into a new career, starting again, it's not always imposter syndrome. Sometimes it's just because we're not comfortable becoming a learner again. And I think the help is there. The whole volunteer team is proof of that. These guys are incredibly busy. Having full-time jobs in most careers is off the charts at the moment. In cyber and tech, people are working 4 or 5 times more than what they were pre-COVID. And still they're giving up their time and their support for other members. So, that stuff is there. So if you want to learn, even if you want to find out whether cyber is not for you, you're not going to know unless you come and ask. So the best way to do it, engage with the community, get those questions across, lean on people, like Dan, like Ben, like Ollie, and all the other volunteers, but also the other members, because there are other people that are going through that same process who may be 1 or 2 weeks ahead of you or 1 or 2 stages ahead, who can share their very recent experience. So really leverage that knowledge and use the military, the sort of military family ethos that we have.
Lovely. And look at Armed Forces Day. I mean, there's an enormous amount of enthusiasm for people from the services. So yeah, you start from the right place. That's it. Thank you so much. That was wonderful.
Fantastic.
That just did it. Thank you, everybody. That was really, really good.
Awesome. Charlie, I